think obviously with a new coach coming in and not having a lot of time before game one, it was actually really insightful for us to see, the evolution under the new manager. But I think he'll evolve again from what he's seen the other night. But I think, they seem compact, they're not afraid to sort of be in a block, but also to be really aggressive when you start from your goalkeeper. So I think, yeah, defensively organised. But then in terms of their attack, I think you could see they just flood the box with numbers and they've got quality in attack. And so, we have to defend really disciplined. But also I see opportunities for us when we have the ball to punish them as well. So they're a top side, and they'll be riding a high, I think, with, a change. And this close to a World Cup, you would think that they're going to, any player that gets on that pitch is there to try and cement a spot for the World Cup. But I think we know they've got quality, and I think that's what I seen the other night, particularly second half. I think when they brought on the likes of a Cascarino and Le Sommer, I thought was outstanding to have her first game back. She did really well. So I think we know they've got quality, but at the same time, you can hurt them with the ball. That's what we'll be aiming to do. I'm actually really excited. I think what I've seen, if I think back to the Australia camp we had, we pretty much had no back four that we'd played for in the last sort of 12 months, and some major players came out of that. You look at Jade Rose, I think she emerged in that game. So I think there's a massive opportunity for anybody that gets on the pitch. Are we light? Yes. You look down your bench and that's depleted and all the rest of it. But at the same time, it's a major opportunity. And, to get that one camp away from your World Cup squad being announced and, going into that World Cup squad, I think I have to look at the opportunity in it and see the bigger picture. What we do know with Canada-France games, it's typically a 1-goal sort of game. There's 1 goal in it, and I'm hoping it can be that tomorrow with the squad we've got available. So far, I've been really, really impressed by the players that are here, and I'm excited for the lineup that goes out in this game. I think there's huge opportunity rather than looking at the downside. Of course, I'd love to have the core players that are missing in there, and fingers crossed they'll, other than what we know about Janine, that they'll be back. But yeah, massive opportunity available for anyone that steps on the pitch. Yeah, it's a great question, because I think, you start to say, well, if these players don't become available for us in time for the World Cup, what is the identity of the team? And is that a little bit different based on what we have available? And I think what you'll see in the game is a blend of that, preparing for a World Cup without and preparing for a World Cup with the players that are on the pitch there. So yeah, I think you'll see some tweaks. I think we have to go in, and it was always targeted this window. It allows us to evolve and tweak and do things that maybe if you're running into a game, the minute you get in camp, you don't necessarily get to do that. So I think you will see some little tweaks and partnerships and things, but we can't make wholesale changes this late in the piece, but definitely we'll have to adapt. And I think what you're seeing on the pitch is probably a little bit of that. Yeah, that's a great question. I think some of that will depend on how the game goes. I think that this close to a World Cup, you're given an opportunity in terms of bringing players into a camp. But I think there's also a reality with, the 5-6 players that are out. It depletes your squad. And so what do you, to go and play a France team to keep confidence high? So there's a lot of things in the mix there to weigh up as a coach. But I think, where the game presents itself, there'll be opportunities given. And in many ways, there is opportunities there for the lineup players too that, have allowed itself to sort of fruition and get them players in. So I think it'll be a balancing act. I'm not hiding from the quality that the France have. And I think I have to balance the confidence, particularly, I think, off the back of She Believes. I'd be silly to mess around with too much in terms of partnerships this late in the piece, going into a major tournament. Yeah, I think for us, we worked with Chelsea, her coming in, and, we sort of deloaded her, and that was the plan. But I think in further assessment, when we did try to sort of get her through the return to play stuff, she couldn't. And I think, looking at the bigger picture, it wasn't the right thing. She couldn't get through what we needed it to get through. So for Kadeisha, I don't think it's a World Cup injury, but it's not she'll be ready, this week type injury either. It's definitely going to need managed, and she'll have to sort of go into the World Cup ramping up like some of the other players. So yeah, I'm just thankful that we we got the scan and everything, and we did the right thing by the player for the bigger picture, and that we didn't push. And yeah, so in many ways, it's a huge loss. I mean, we can't deny that Kadeisha is one of the best centre-backs in the world with her experience, knows these players very well. The loss is massive, but at the same time, great opportunity for the player that steps in. And thankfully, I think hopefully she'll be good for the World Cup. I mean, listen, you got to see it and feel it, but I think, we were in a remote location that allowed us to just focus on us. We put a lot of attention on the vibes, you could say, the vibes of the squad, and the environment that we created, because I know that a together team can go and do anything. You've seen that in 2021. And I think very much so off the back of what it felt like in that February window. I've never felt like that. And I think the team would say the same, that this team is renowned for being together and light. And it was anything but that, naturally, based on what was going on. So huge attention. And I must credit my staff. I put a lot of attention on the culture and making sure that the environment has felt really good. And it's been such an enjoyable camp, to be honest. I've really, really enjoyed it. And I hope that enjoyment continues into the game that we see tomorrow. Yeah, so Quinn, I think, I don't see that as a huge long-term injury, but just not a readiness to take part in this camp. So, I don't believe that would affect, you should see Quinn in the coming games, I would like to think, in NWSL. And then Shalina, yeah, listen, I'm actually proud of Shalina. I think we all knew coming into the February camp, or at least myself, when Shalina turned up, and just, the interactions, you get a sense that something wasn't right and all the rest of it. And I think for Shalina to push and rule out everything and, come to learn what was going on from an illness perspective, you want your players to feel that they can do that. And I had a really good conversation with her before camp, and we just both agreed that, for her to come in and try and push through based on what was going on, I don't think it was the right thing. And obviously hasn't taken the pitch yet with Tottenham. So she's progressing, obviously. But as we all know, with the illness that she stated, it's not a overnight thing. You can't rush back, and you've got to put attention on being healthy. And I think that's the first thing. We need a healthy Shalina before we can look at performances and all the rest of it. So, but she's doing well. Yeah, I think it's fantastic, Neil. I think, for the whole of the world to be doing it, I think it acknowledges where the women's game's at and the equality issues that's faced all around the world. I think, it's a very united, and although it's competition on the pitch, what you learn about the women's game is off the pitch. It's united and they're all together. And I think that's quite special and unique with the women's game. And I think the support has been outstanding. The players feel that. And I think, it's the push that's probably needed around the world, to be honest. Yeah, it's actually a really difficult situation. And, if you're not careful, you can go into this France game with a whole lot of clutter. And I think that's where, as a coach, you have to work through the what if players are back and what if players aren't, and what the options are. And I think from me personally, I've said it to the individuals and I've said it to the group that I'll be waiting and pushing as long as I can to make sure that Canada has the best 23 players available in that World Cup. And if that means, taking extra players to a preparation camp before the naming of the official squad has to happen as late as it can be, then, I think the squad and every player involved would appreciate that. So it's very difficult. And I also appreciate it's very difficult for the players that know that they're pushing. I must say, and, credit to every single player in this camp, particularly with only one game. I can imagine if you're that sort of bubble player and you know it, and there's only one game, and the injuries we've had, and what you can afford to put out there as a coach, the attitude and application has been fantastic. And what I will say is, regardless of who's fit and unfit for the World Cup, beyond this World Cup, we have a bright future. I think there's a whole host of players that have come in either late to the fold or, have been in and around this team in the past sort of 12 months that, should any players retire at this World Cup, there's, I've got to actually see some players and test them out in this environment. And I think that's been quite cool. And probably, I wish the injuries didn't happen that actually forced it to happen. But in many ways, I know if someone, pulls up, I've got some players there that have come in and applied themselves fantastically. Yeah, listen, the mood's been fantastic. That was obviously an Easter game, like, cracking eggs, and Chappie, in a usual competitive manner, won that game, and probably we all heard about it. But I think, yeah, just the group's just been, yeah, I must say, for a last camp before a World Cup where, for some players, the tensions are high and there's a lot riding on it. I'll commend the leaders in the group, the staff, everybody for making this group come together. When I got them together at the beginning of this camp, I talked about how, you can have great players, but great players don't make a great team, and just putting a lot of focus on making sure this team is together, because in February there's just a lot of distractions. And when you're distracted or you're angry or all the things, the emotions that were happening, it's very hard to give and put more in than you're taking out as an individual. And I really do feel that every player's put more in than what they've taken out this camp. And I think we felt that on the pitch, off the pitch. And I must say, where we were I mean, it's probably been online. Animals, they help, just bring the vibes to the group. So it's, yeah, I must admit, it's been a really enjoyable camp, and I hope that we can look back on it and say it was a successful camp, both on and off the pitch.